concepts. So then, welcome everyone to the first BoF session of the group on discipline-specific guidance for DMPs. Next slide. First, I will start with some welcome notes. So please be aware that the session will be recorded and made available on the RDA website. So if you don't want to switch off your video or only participate via the chat, maybe if you like to. When you are not talking, please mute yourself. But if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments, feel free to use the chat or raise your hand. It's in the participant line. We also have collaborative session notes, and the link will be added in the chat as well. And in the Google Docs document of the collaborating session notes, we also have the attendance list. So please add your name to the list. On our agenda for today's meeting, we will first introduce the idea of this working group. And after this, we want to hear some examples on discipline-specific DMPs. That would be followed by the presentation of the case statement with a discussion. Depending on, we have 27 participants at the moment. We can do it into breakout rooms. And in the end, we will have a short closure and think about the next steps. Okay, then I think we can start with the introduction of the co-chairs. So my name is Daniela Hausen, and I work as a research data officer at RWTH Aachen in Germany. And from my background, I'm a chemist and an information scientist as well. I will go through the order how I see it, maybe the co-chairs. So Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Murray. I'm the head of data and software publishing at F1000 Research. Traditionally, we're a life sciences and medical publisher, but we're currently expanding into humanities and social sciences.
Great. Shannon?
Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon Sheridan, and I am the data management librarian at the University of Wyoming in the USA, and I serve as the data management librarian for all disciplines, so wide background.
Santosh?
Hi, everybody. I'm Santosh Elamparuti. I'm the data steward for the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, Mathematics, and Computer Science at TU Delft in the Netherlands.
Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Rudy. I'm the data steward for the Faculty of Behavioral and Human Movement Sciences at the VU in Amsterdam, the Vrije University in Amsterdam, and background in data management.
Yvonne?
Hi, my name is Yvonne Anders, and I'm working at the German Climate Computing Center in the data management group. And my background, so I'm working there in the data management. In general, my background is climate research, climate modeling, and climate services.
And last but not least, Jesmond, please.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm Yasemin. I'm also a direct colleague of Santosh. I work as a data steward at Delft University of Technology as well in the Netherlands, and I'm working at the Faculty of Mechanical, Maritime and Materials Engineering. My background is in molecular biology. And with that, I think we are all introduced. So I would like to share my screen very shortly. And yeah, so some of you already started filling in. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. And it's very nice to see we actually have quite some variety here today. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. So that's really brilliant. Really nice. We see a lot of people from data management direction, data archive, but also I see a lot of in the other fields, social sciences, humanities, health sciences, biotechnology, climate science. So that's really great. Engineering. Brilliant. Okay, I'm guessing this is now complete. So then we would like to move to the next question. Just again to get to know you a little bit better.
Hi, this is Helen here. Could I request you to put the mentee information on the chat as well?
Yes, of course. You should be able to see it on the top of the slide, but of course. Would any of my colleagues be able to put it? I just have difficulty to reach the chat because of sharing my screen. Thank you. Okay, so we see that we have a lot of data support, researchers, DMP tool providers. Apologies that we couldn't cover all the roles. We are also, of course, curious what other roles are here with us, and thank you very much for joining us. Okay. In that case, I would like to finalize this part. So, okay, we also have more voting going on. Thank you very much for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting us know who is interested in the idea of a discipline-specific guidance for DMPs, because at some points we really need your help, and therefore it's good to know yeah, who is in the room already. So we shortly want to introduce the idea of this working group. The working group was born, when we call it like this, at the Helsinki plenary. There we were discussing about the acceptance and the advantages of DMPs and about the impressions from the infrastructure perspective. That are DMPs are used for concepts which could be implemented in the daily work of the researchers. And looking from the researcher perspective, then we see that they have to use when they have to use DMPs for the first time, it seems to be really different than from the infrastructure perspective, because they see it as an additional work, a bureaucratical work, and not that it could be make their life easier. So then we was talking about, okay, what can be done to overcome this gap between the two perspectives and to make DMPs really living document in the end. And one approach could be that to provide discipline-specific guidance for DMPs. And this idea or recommendation was also one of the results. Next slide, please. On the open air survey on Horizon 2020 DMPs, which was conducted with the FAIR Data Expert Group. So they got the survey, they got in the survey around 300 responses with 50% of researcher participation, which is really good. And so there is, on this slide, there is still some more information provided for those who want to go deeper in the survey, but the really important question for us is the question number 11 on the next slide. Thanks. And here they ask on the priorities of a DMP template or tool. And as you can see, the four highest priorities are on discipline-specific aspects in a DMP. So researcher mentioned that there should be more discipline-specific relevant standards, good practice in the disciplines, as well as the disciplinary guidance should be included in DMPs. And therefore, one of the recommendations as well from the survey was to provide discipline-specific guidance for the DMPs. And this was a really short introduction on the ideas, so we will pick this up later on in the case statement as well. We have now 3 examples from discipline-specific work in the field of DMPs. And I would like to start with one project we were running together with the Technical University of Darmstadt. In 2018, we were running the project on data management planning in engineering. And our hypothesis was that DMPs can guide to good RDM, but an adaptation is necessary. We were running, next slide. We were running 2 one-day workshops with in total 22 participants. And in these workshops, we started from the RDMO catalog, which is a German tool generating generic DMPs. And yeah, we wanted to know from the researchers which information is too generic and what can be done better. And in a word cafe, we worked together with the researchers on the generic template and got 127 notes in total on different aspects. Next slide. Like guidelines, quality assurance, collaborative work, just to pick out some examples. And at the end of the project, a living DMP seems to be more a vision, but we were also realistic that only 6 months is not enough time for this project. So there was only a funding for 6 months, which limited everything. Next slide. So we picked up the results and started this year again with 3 more use cases. It is still work in progress, but for the engineering science, it seems that the quality assurance should be one of the discipline-specific aspects we have to focus in, and also a role management for data sharing, depending on their industry collaborations. Were discussed a lot of times that this could be also included in the DMPs as well. Okay, this was a really, really short walk through the project we were running and some interim results from the use cases we are already having. And I think I want to hand over to Kes, and we will have a short Q&A after the 3 talks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniela. I hope you can all hear me well. My name is Kees Hof. I work at the DANS, and DANS stands for Data Archiving and Networked Services. We are a data institute of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. And our core mission is to support researchers to use their data in a fair way and to store their data and share their data in a fair way. So the core of our organization is the technical services that we provide. We have a long-term data archive, we have dynamic data platforms, but we also do provide a lot of training, and data management planning and data management plans is a specific part of our training curriculum. So we do pay a lot of attention to this. At DANS at the national level, but also in the European projects in which we participate. And I thought it would be good to provide you some inside info on what's going on right now on data management training and data management planning training, and specifically when focusing on domain-specific DMPs. So as a core of our training activities, we use the Science Europe publications on discipline-specific research data management, which I think is the base of the development around domain-specific DMPs. We use this information within the project EOSC Hub. EOSC Hub is one of the branches on the European Open Science Cloud tree to test it in practice. We have made a selection of tools, DMP tools, such as Argos or the Data Steward Wizard or DMP Online, and test it with different audiences and see how they can actually use this and turn these tools into more domain-specific bits of their data research management. So we arrange some workshops, interactive workshops. So we want people to use the tools, but we also want to receive information what they prefer on the tools and how we should adapt the tools to certain domains for their purpose. And I can also I'm proud to say that we push the DMP business quite a lot. And we recently embarked on a large European project called Polyphonia, which is a 3-year network on musicological data, where we as DANS provide DMP services throughout the project. And we got a significant number of budget and months to do so. So we can really spend a significant amount of time dedicated to domain-specific DMP management. Next slide, please. However, also at home, I would say, we focus on domain-specific DMPs. DANS is hosting one of the largest archaeological data set collections in Europe. And we watched some very nice examples on how the DMP tool Argos, that originates from the open air community. I think also at the RDA side, there's a poster available for this plenary session where you can see all the details. And Argos is also now communicating and working together with Ariadne. And Ariadne is a large European archaeological research network. Being the owner of a lot of archaeological data at DANS, next slide please, we obviously would like to see this integrated in our own system. So how can we use Argos to serve our archaeological community and provide domain-specific, archaeological domain-specific DMPs in their research data lifecycle? Next slide, please. And this is also the last slide. So this is currently a project that we are planning. It's not being started yet, but this is the way we envisage domain-specific practices close to our archival services, where we interact with the archaeological research community and train them or ask them to use Argos. We also ask them to provide the more domain-specific knowledge organization systems and vocabularies and so on that they use, and store these in our Dataverse repository, which is also then connected to Argos. And from Argos, users will be able to handle versions of their DMPs in Dataverse, and in the end also use our archaeological long-term archive to store the DMPs together with all the research outputs, so together with the data sets, together with the publications. So this all together makes a nice integrated network of of data and the related data management plans. And I'm available for more questions if anybody has these at the end of the 3 presentations. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sebastian from GESIS in Cologne, Germany. And I'd briefly like to talk a bit about a project developing so-called domain data protocols for educational research in Germany. Next slide, please. So let me briefly say something about who we are and what we aim to do. The project involves 12 institutes. Most of them are directly involved in educational research. All of them are involved in data infrastructure. We are funded by the Federal Minister of Education and Research in Germany, and our project duration is between June 2019 and May 2022. So what we aim to do? Thanks a lot. We build up on a concept of Science Europe, as Case mentioned already. The idea to develop so-called standardized protocols for a given domain. And in our case, that's educational research. So what we aim to do is to provide simple guidance for researchers on how to create open data following the fair data principles. Before I go ahead, I think there is one thing to make clear, that there is a difference between a data management plan, which is always something individual depending on a concrete research project, a data management plan template, which provides questions on what researchers should care about when doing data management, and a domain data protocol, which provide guidelines on how to do things and defines a minimum set of requirements, how fair data should look like, providing use cases, standards, and further resources in addition. Could you please go one slide ahead? So the question is, why did we start with educational research, or why do we define it as a domain? Well, there are 2 preconditions in Germany which are of importance for us in the project. The one thing is that the most important funder in educational research, which is the Ministry for Education and Research, requires data sharing since a couple of years. So they really expect researchers to share the data when a project is funded by the ministry. And in addition, or in this context, an infrastructure was established for data sharing, which is some kind of a federal archiving structure where different institutes come together according to their expertise for different data types. This is the so-called Verbund Forschungsdatenbildung. Could you go one slide ahead, please? Thanks. So having a closer look at educational research, of course, people in educational research deal with quite similar research topics. But more important for us is the fact that they share common methods on data collection and data usage, and that they all deal with more or less the same research population, which is somehow quite sensitive, talking about or examining the behavior of children, teenagers, and so on. The tricky thing on educational research is that there is a huge variety of different types of data that are used. So we have these data metrics, you know, from quantitative research, we have text files, video files, audio files, pictures, images, and so on, which makes guidance a bit tricky, because for all these different types of data, you need different advice on, for example, how to document data best. Could you? Thanks. So in my understanding, or in our understanding, there is a clear need for domain-specific DMPs, taking differences in data types, in research subjects, and so on into account. So that's the way how we think we can assist researchers best in doing good data management, and at the end, create data that can be shared with others. Thanks a lot. So this is, on the one hand, we need these domain-specific DMPs, but on the other hand, I think it is of importance to highlight that educational research is not in a nutshell. So it is part of social science research, and a lot of things we develop now for domain data protocols in educational research can be transferred to other domains in the social sciences. So we all deal with common standards of data collection and data usage. We have similar research populations, similar information we deal with. So it's quite simple to transfer at least parts of domain-specific protocols to other domains. And not even within one research discipline, but also across research disciplines. So just for example, in educational research, data volume can be quite high in comparison to other domains in the social sciences. But when we have a look at other disciplines, maybe natural sciences, their volume of data is even higher, and DDPs in educational research could profit a lot from DDPs in natural sciences, just simply to learn, for example, how to deal with high volume of data. So to conclude, I think there is a need for domain-specific DMPs. But when we start developing it, I think we will figure out that there is much more in common than we expect. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Now we're going to go through the case statement a little bit. And just a caveat, this is a kind of high-level overview of what... Oh,
Shannon, sorry. Should we maybe have 2 or 3 questions? So because
yes.
there were some questions coming up in the chat.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. The slide changed and I was ready to go.
I've noted down the 2 questions that have come up. One was one that we'd have just right now that relates to what Dinesha was saying. Question from Helen, is your sample inclusive of university level education, or is it focused on children and teens, primary and high school?
It's simply educational research, which could indeed be everything. But I mean, most of the research is about pupils, so teenagers and children.
Thanks. And then a more general question for well, all of us. What constitutes a discipline? Would it be better to focus at analysis types, inductive versus deductive reasoning, personal data, example humanities? There's so many different ways to handle data. That was from Karsten, which I agree with wholeheartedly because it is very complex.
Yeah, maybe to say something about, so the use cases we were running, they were from chemical engineering, and they were coming from thermodynamics and from mechanical engineering. And they were using different analysis types. They were producing different data types and all of those. But I think in one point you have to say, okay, one discipline is too big and you have to narrow it down to different subdisciplines. And then you can have the concepts on the discipline specific or the subdiscipline specific guidance as well.
Okay. We also will take one more question. Kevin, Ashley, you raised your hand. Are you able to speak?
Yeah, it was really a follow-up on that point, and perhaps we need to deal with it in the breakouts. But I think one of my concerns, even when I saw the Science Europe report, which we're about to talk about, is thinking about the ongoing maintenance problem, never mind the issue of creating potentially 600 plus, depending which definition of disciplines you use, different sets of guidance, but ensuring that in the coming years those things are kept up to date. And I think it's important that the working group not just produces an output, produces something where we understand what the cost of sustaining it will be, and yeah, find a way to create something that is sustainable.
Shall we go on for now, Daniela, and then do more questions at the end?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So please, Shannon.
Okay. So yes, as I was saying, I'm going to be going over our case statement, high level. Santosh had put the link for the full case statement in the chat if anybody after the meeting wants to go and read a little bit more. So the main value proposition for the group is that we would produce a discipline-specific guidance catalog, which can provide disciplinary-specific guidance to a variety of stakeholders in the creation of data management plans. The guidance for creating the DMP questions from the Science Europe practice guide to international alignment of data management is going to be the basis upon which this guidance would be developed. The key beneficiaries that we see will be researchers from the involved disciplines, as well as any stakeholders that work closely with those researchers. So people like data stewards, data managers, research data librarians, data management experts, officers, funders, etc. Additionally, a lot of respective and related communities and associations may be interested in pushing forward discipline-specific sections to help their researchers overcome bureaucratic hurdles and eventually perceive a data management plan as a complementary and helpful tool for research instead of just one more thing to do. So next slide, please. Thank you. So some of the benefits for stakeholders, for researchers, having guidance specific to their discipline is helpful to fill the gap between a generic DMP and what their actual daily practice is. So by providing discipline-specific guidance for DMPs that are directly relevant to the researcher can help make DMPs living tools that researchers actively use throughout their research lifecycle. What's more, these discipline-specific guides can be used in conjunction to kind of transcend individual disciplines and help contribute to DMPs for multidisciplinary projects. Data professionals would also greatly benefit from having readily available access to some sort of catalog for a variety of disciplines that they can share with researchers. Oftentimes at institutions, these professionals are hired centrally and there's just not enough capacity to provide in-depth discipline-specific support. And so the catalog can be useful for them to help support a multitude of disciplines and also be used as a training tool for individuals that are newly hired into these types of positions. Additionally, many research funders, universities, and non-university institutions, as well as publishers, expect some type of information about data management or accessibility from researchers, which I'm sure you all very well know. However, a lot of institutions are still in the early days and can only provide central and rather generic support instead of disciplinary support. So additionally, it can also be a challenge to find data support professionals with disciplinary specific knowledge. So discipline specific guidance for these institutions can allow them to provide more tailored support to researchers, which would result in a better return on their investment. Finally, often when writing DMPs, researchers often use DMP tools, which allow researchers to build DMPs following funder-specific structure and section-specific guidance. However, this guidance, while tailored to the funding agency, is often subject agnostic, which can lead to DMPs that might be well-written and meet the requirements of the funding agency, but are actually not really applicable to the researcher's project or creating something that they will use throughout their research project. So when looking at common DMP tools, the guidance of discipline-specific DMPs by adding them to things like DMP Online or DMP Tool could help improve the use of these resulting DMPs in the long term. Next slide, please. So in our case statement, we looked at a couple discipline-specific requirement examples to kind of walk through what some of the more unique challenges would be. And obviously, these are not all of the challenges that can come with all of the different disciplines, and they're certainly not unique necessarily for each discipline, but we just wanted to provide an overview. So for example, we talked about behavioral, educational, and social sciences, where some of the challenges include things like having an extremely wide variety of data types and data management skill sets. Many of the data types overlap with other disciplines, and there are very many ethical and privacy issues that can result from research that is conducted within this discipline. For engineering and natural sciences, there's a lot of heterogeneity. So large data sets, confidential data, proprietary data formats, and research software. You also have IP considerations to take into account. So things like restrictions on sharing, And there's not a lot of RDM best practices and standards that are disciplinary wide. And then finally, in the life sciences, so things like medicine, biology, there's a lot of siloed subdisciplines at different stages when it comes to making data fair, sharing data, and practicing with open data. There's a lot of there is an increasing amount of disciplinary collaborations between researchers, but between the different disciplines, they can lack a common metadata schema. And finally, there are many diverse activities, diverse data types, again, some with some pretty intense privacy considerations, and also just the sheer size of data for some research projects. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So in terms of engagement with existing work, there's actually 2 other RDA working groups that currently exist kind of around this domain. So we have Exposing Data Management Plans Working Group and the DMP Common Standard Working Group. Furthermore, there is some evidence that supports researchers' needs for subject-specific support for data management plans and how helpful such tools can be. So we just saw a couple of instances and examples of that. Daniela mentioned the project in engineering with Aachen and Darmstadt. Another approach are the domain data protocols for educational research, which we just heard about. And then finally, in psychology, another example, the tool DataWiz was developed. And this is an open source assistance system for data management in psychology. And so these are just a couple of examples that show that, this disciplinary specific guidance where researchers want things that are tailored to the work they're doing can be really helpful and in some cases might be necessary. And so we think it's really important to involve other RDA discipline specific groups, because the thing is what would make these discipline specific guidance catalogs and plans most relevant is if we have input from those who are experts within those specific fields, and bringing together a lot of different voices and a lot of different experience to make the most useful tool that we can. And so to that end, next slide, please. We have a couple of milestones that we have laid out. And so I'll go over them really briefly here. So our first milestone is to identify what's already known, what gaps there are, where there's overlaps, and some additional use cases. So in order to provide this guidance, an initial survey of the current state of disciplinary specific DMPs is required, so we don't end up reinventing the wheel. We plan to collect this information through 2 instruments. The first is an online survey to be filled in by researchers and discipline-specific data stewards to get that expert knowledge. And then at the end of the survey, participants will have the option to provide further contact information for more in-depth phone or email interviews. The second milestone then, based on the results of milestone 1, is a discussion with disciplinary experts, kind of going along with those in-depth interviews. And then based on the results of milestone 1 and 2, we will create a final guidance document. So this is going to address any knowledge gaps that were mentioned in the survey and the in-person interviews, as well as summarize any guidance that already exists that overlaps across disciplines or is already common within a discipline. And then our fourth milestone, once those final guidance documents are created, the working group would plan to promote the documents to a variety of stakeholders through a variety of channels. So things like social media, professional associations, conferences. And as a part of this promotion, we really want to encourage users to serve as test cases for the guidance so that we can refine, see what works, see what doesn't, and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. Which brings me then to the 2 deliverables. So the first deliverable will be the survey details. So that will include the questions used, the methodology, and the audience that we targeted. So all of that information will be shared, not only so people can see what we are doing, but so that this can also act as a resource for the future when fields that might not have been covered in the original working group outputs that can then use it to develop their own discipline-specific guidelines. And then our second deliverable, which will be the overview or the guidance document. So this guidance document will provide for each use case discipline, for every DMP question addressed in the Science Europe practice guide. This document would also be shared with DMP software providers to utilize as they see fit. It will also be shared with funders who can opt to include the document with other information provided to researchers creating DMPs who might be using their funder templates. And then lastly, the working group plans to use their connections with the RDM community managers to make sure that discipline-specific data stewards at research institutions are aware of the guidance document so that they can begin to implement it in their daily work or refer to it as needed.
All right, so we're gonna do a discussion now. Before we do that, I think there's a couple questions we should probably zoom in on. Karsten, I'm gonna put your question about machine actual DMPs on the notes and we can come back to that a bit later. But I thought before the discussion, we should probably answer, there's a question from Peter McHugh. Why are the life sciences split from natural sciences? Someone with more experience in that area want to?
I think one of the reasons that they split was to focus on like privacy, especially within when using like human, if I can look at the, let me pull up the slide. Yeah, I think it was to break it down to look at the different data types and some of the different data issues that were kind of more specific to that discipline. And as I said, you know, when we talked about some of the challenges, those were just kind of some examples. I didn't want to list all of them out, but I think you make a very good point where there is a lot of overlap in terms of some of the challenges for individual disciplines. And so, you know, being cognizant of that is something that we would, you know, consider when we were writing these.
Yeah, definitely. There's one question specifically directed at you, Shannon. Could you say a little bit more about what you envision the discipline-specific guidance overview to look like? Okay, well, that's also for all of us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not going to speak for the whole group on that.
No. It's a good question, and we're still trying to figure that out. We talked about the idea of initially the group was set up to be discipline-specific DMPs themselves, and we realized, at least within the Netherlands, that a lot of funders require you to use their templates. So that's why we chose the option of having it be guidance. It's still a little bit flexible in the end of what it will look like, because the idea is also, can we make this something that people can implement however they desire? Like if DMP Online takes the information and then puts it into the tool, that's their prerogative, but we just want to have the information there to be findable. So yeah, it still needs to be determined the best way to go about that. Anybody else want to, from our team, want to?
I can't raise my hand, so I'm a co-chair, sorry. I also wanted to say something to this. So we also were talking about the different tool providers and the implementation of the guidance in the tools themselves. First of all, we discussed, okay, we can, how the tools were working. So we saw in Germany, we have these RDMO, and in RDMO, every institute which is having an RDMO, they can build their own catalog, their own questions. You can change the helping information. You can change the answers. You can change everything what you like to, so everyone can do it. And then we have the DMP Online. And I wasn't sure if we also discussed the database or the Argos itself, but we saw there the gap that we can't say the tool providers, you have to do it in this way. And we wasn't sure if we can or if the two providers can also manage different templates with different questions, with different answer sets and all of those. So therefore, we decided, okay, we will go for a guidance, and in another step after the working group, we will see how it could be implemented in the different tools.
Okay, for now, we'll park the rest of the questions. I've put the ones that we haven't addressed on the notes, and we'll try to come back to them after the discussion. But for right now, we want to do a discussion in breakout rooms. The idea here is we've brought up a few different questions that came to our mind in terms of what kind of things we're thinking about. And so we've put those in additional Google documents. Every room has the same questions. So there's no like division on that part. There are a fair number, so discuss in your groups as few or as many as you'd like. You can add more if there's more important discussion points. We did break them down into the discipline use cases that we've described. So if you're speaking from a specific discipline, then try to put the notes in the areas where it applies. If the discussion is, a little bit too active, but you have a point, feel free to just write your points right on the Google document. And so what we're going to do, we have, okay, suddenly people dropped out really fast. So we have 43 participants. Yeah, it'll be either 2 or 3 breakout groups. So make note of what your breakout group number is. And on the Google document, you'll see a link to the breakout room under discussion and breakout sessions. So just click on the appropriate session based on your breakout room number, and then make your notes on there. And we'll meet again back in 25 minutes. And every group will just give a quick 1-minute summary of what was discussed.
Jasmine?
Yeah, apologies. The rooms expired, but I tried to send you all again to the same rooms.
Okay. So
oh, sorry. I thought that was a mistake, and therefore I exited the group. I'm sorry.
Okay, no
I
worries.
also wasn't sure what's going on because we only have 9 participants right now.
Sorry, could I request you to send me back to my room?
Yeah. I wasn't.
Oh, I'm afraid people left on the meeting because I don't understand.
Oh,
no,
they left the
apologies.
meeting?
Sorry. What happened is that I've started the meeting rooms and I didn't pay attention how many people, how many minutes was the limit. And then I saw, oh no, this is a meeting limit. And I hoped that when it's closed, I would reopen it again and then people will connect. But now I see a lot of people dropped from the. Okay. I think some people clicked on leave the meeting then.
Yeah, but Holly, maybe should we continue now? So we are 9 participants here in the main room and all the other ones are in the other breaking rooms, or?
I don't think. I think they left.
All of them left?
I think so. So probably they clicked on leave the meeting without attempting to leave the meeting.
Oh.
That was what I was hoping indeed, that somehow you are not, yeah. I don't know, would they think of clicking on the link again? Because we are also missing people from from the co-chairs also.
Yes.
I'm going to try jumping back into my breakout room.
Now I close the breakout rooms because
okay.
Let me see. I will give it a try.
Yeah.
Okay, just a second. Sorry. Or maybe they are on. Maybe you're right, actually. Sorry, I will try to send you again to your meeting rooms. Apologies.
So I was part of breakout room 3.
Yeah, I'll take care. You were, sorry, who said that?
This is Helen here. I was part of breakout room 3.
Yes, I will take care of it. Apologies. No, I understand what happened. Really sorry.
No problem, no problem. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Jasmine, I can't stay in the room. So it's also sending me to session 2 and then
Yeah. So then I send you to session 1 because I first have to send you somewhere else before I can send you to session.
Maybe do the other ones first.
I can't send you to session 1. I first have to send you to another session and then I send you again to session 1.
But please try the other ones first.
Of course.
Sorry for the technical problems.
Yes, my apologies, really.
We all learn with these techniques, and it's quite common. I mean,
yeah.
In 10 years we will laugh about it.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I hope it's earlier. But we so when are we closing the rooms? Only in 2 minutes, or?
Sorry, I can look. I was trying to move everyone to the rooms. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Actually, in 6 minutes. Okay. What's happening is that I try to send you, but it just doesn't work. I think with some of the people. So that's I don't understand why that's the case. Because I keep sending you, but it says not joined. That's
Okay,
interesting.
should we maybe have a small discussion here in the main room?
Yeah, sure. That's a
I
good
wasn't
idea.
sure how
Actually.
many you discussed in the other sessions already. So we were only coming up to with question 2. So we, the next thing we would discuss is about what motivates you to write a DMP. Would discipline-specific advice improve that motivation? So what do you think? No one wants to say anything.
Maybe you got another question, Daniela?
Yes, I can also have a look. Wait. I think this is more for researchers, but maybe it could also be interesting from an infrastructure perspective. So how often do you refer back to a DMP after it's written? So is it part of your work? Is it a living document, or only I filled it in once and then it's in my desk?
I think later is true for most researchers. Write it for the funding application and then forget about it.
Yeah, I also think so.
Yeah, I think so too. Just a very practical question, Daniela. Where to capture the notes from this? Shall I make a new document for this? I can make it right away.
Or should we maybe put it into the breakout session 1 notes?
Yeah. Okay, if you don't mind.
Should I share it? Wait. Can I share the?
You should be able. Do you want to share a screen or
Yes,
share?
it's working. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
So I think this is for all disciplines, or?
For other disciplines that are not listed.
Or maybe this question could also be important. What tools are you using to write DMPs? So what I heard from the other ones, that it's also specific to the countries, maybe. So when I think about DMP online, it's not so so much used in Germany. I think this is more the RDMO tool, which is important. So maybe this is not discipline specific then, the tools.
Well, RDMO can be discipline specific. You get these different templates you can load in.
Yeah. But so Kevin mentioned this before, that also other tools can do this. But when I think about, okay, what tools we are using in Germany, so the question is only what tools are you using to write DMPs, then I would say it's more country specific than discipline specific. I think when we were discussing these questions in the working group, we were thinking about these data viz, which is coming up from psychology. But I think this is the only discipline specific tool, or?
I just want to chime in. So with DMP tool and DMP online, we use the same code base. You can create templates as you wish, right? There you have the ability to create a discipline specific DMP. You can create specific guidance within the tool. So with the DMP tool, we're usually using funders So we have templates for the different funders, but an institution or a different organization could go in and create whatever kind of discipline specific guidance within the tool or a specific template kind of out of the box as well.
But could every institute can do this, or?
DMP, I'll have to give that to the DMP online folks. With the DMP tool, yes, any institution, any participating institution can create their own templates, and they can also create their own guidance that's customized for them, and that could be discipline specific. And so we use the same code base, and that same code base is used by folks in France. We've got people in South Africa. It's all over the world. So it's not just the United States and Britain. We've got people using it in other locations and other settings as well.
Okay, anything else? Any other tool you know which can be used discipline?
I think I think, Daniela, you should really write this down, what you mentioned before, that it has something to do, it's more country specific than discipline specific. It has a lot to do with traditions in the country.
Yeah.
So in my understanding, or most researchers in social science in Germany, they don't like to do research data management, as it is quite common. So why should I care about any online tool? Use a Word doc, especially if it's for Horizon 2020. They got these 4 questions, so find some simple answers on it. But it's just my impression.
Maybe I can say something to this point, because we try to use we have the RDMO tool, and we create own DMPs there for the people, and we try to use these information because we're also a repository. The DKRZ is a repository, and we try to use these information want to use the information they put into the DMP to make it easier to publish in our repository, so that the people don't have to give the double information, or give the information twice or even 3 times if they use the RDMO for DMPs and then they publish something. So we try to avoid that they give the same information again and again. So we try to make a benefit out of this RDMO tool, actually.
Time-wise, should I close the breakout sessions for the last discussion?
Yes, please. I think there are some more also in the main room now, but not all of them are. And now they're coming.
Oh, we got dragged out in the middle?
This time, because it is for the discussion, my sincere apologies for the first one. Seriously, I didn't see that there was a timer and then it ended. Really sorry for that. But now it's because we are within the last 10 minutes. Apologies.
Okay.
Okay, so the goal was to have every group sort of give a quick summary of what they discussed. Since I'm talking already and I volunteered for my group, we had quite a few different discussions, and there were some concerns, but also lots of interest. There's definitely some desire to how can we, make these ideas machine actionable. And that was also some questions that were proposed, so those are in the notes. Additionally, some concerns about the idea of if we do too much with DMP specific advice, are we siloing people more when in fact we want to have more sharing of knowledge and overlaps between research. So Case also discussed how at DUNS, the idea of you have a basic DMP that these are requirements for everyone, and you layer on top of that depending on certain data types or certain focuses, additional specific information, as well as the ideas of like how the ultimate advice is going to look like. Can it be some kind of centralized location, similar to the Equator Network that is already existing for life sciences, as something where people can add and share and make sure the information is findable, but not necessarily, resulting in too much siloing between groups.
Great. I can summarize for Breakout Group 1. So in the beginning, there was just a bit of confusion, just to lay it out for everyone a bit more clearly, is that we want to develop discipline-specific guides for DMPs rather than discipline-specific templates. And we hope these guides will work together with templates, but we're not setting out to develop new templates by any means. We then talked a bit about, in developing these guides, who really is going to be the authority within a discipline. Is it going to be, a association, a discipline-specific association that says these guides, yes, they have our stamp of approval, and these are what you should be looking to when making your DMP. And we talked in that sense a lot about community building and how we can work from the bottom up by getting people to actually use the guides, and that being a mode of validation in itself. At the very end, we did talk a bit about motivations and whether, the carrot or the stick tends to work better in terms of why researchers do DMPs, or why would they be motivated to complete a DMP. And from a lot of it, the sound was that it's a stick, but it led into a really interesting conversation on how these discipline-specific guides, if at all, could integrate with machine actionable DMP metadata standard. And how there is potential there to use that more as the carrot in showing the real value of a DMP to researchers. That's about it.
Cool. Well, we were group 2, and I can summarize for us. So kind of what Holly just touched on, we also touched on in our group in terms of interoperability and, with people using a variety of different softwares to create DMPs, and some of them end up being very static documents. How do we get this guidance used when people are creating it, and how can we move it between different kinds of software, whatever different systems people are using, to make sure that, the DMP ends up being this living document that researchers can actually go back and refer to. Because one of the shortcomings just with DMPs in general that a couple of people commented on in our group was that, you use the software, you make a DMP, you save it as a PDF and you submit it to your funder, and that's kind of the last that you ever see of it. So how to make it a little bit more dynamic with this guidance. The other big thing that we talked about was, which came up in the chat a little bit in the main session too, was the focus of, what is a discipline, and, what sort of guidance might researchers actually find helpful. So creating guidance for people who are doing surveys, for example, and the kinds of things that they should think about, rather than, creating different for just, 2 engineers, for example, who might be using different data types, different methodologies, different infrastructure that they really need to consider when making their DMPs. So I think those were our 2 kind of big, and also just a recognition that this might be helpful for researchers to make DMPs that they actually end up using.
Thanks. So looking back at the questions that I pulled from the chat and put in the notes, I think a lot of that was already kind of addressed in the discussions. Obviously, we haven't answered everything because there's still a lot of things that need to be figured out and decided upon. Since we're kind of close to end of time, are there any really pressing questions, anything that people feel like I'm not clear on, that they want to ask? Okay. Feel free to, the notes, where they are. So you can put your questions in there. And obviously, if you've agreed to continue to be involved, then these questions and discussions continue after this meeting. So yeah, we've got our plan, as Shannon presented earlier, for the next 6 months to identify what the knowledge gaps are and where the overlapping information is, address the need for any additional use cases. The link to the case statement, it's on the slides. It's also in the notes for this meeting, so you can find that and read more details on the plan. And yeah, thank you everyone for your attendance and your great discussions and everything you brought in. We hope to work with you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Good job, everybody.
Woo, go team.
Great job, everybody.
Again, my sincere apologies. I was Googling what to do, how to fix it. I couldn't find a solution. Really, really sorry.
No problem.
No worries.
So we were kicked off from some sessions, and we couldn't return. So, but then we had a small discussion in the main room. So I think everything was fine.
And I think you got us pretty much back into, like, my group was mostly the same as what it was before. So
yeah, same
I think
here.
our breakout room, Shannon and mine, I think that ended up not that affected, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we were good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was in breakout 1 and I couldn't return. So Jasmine tried it, I think 3 times to put me in breakout 2, and then I always returned to the main session. So yeah.
So was it by default only for 20 minutes, Yasmin? Is that what you couldn't change?
And yeah, I think I missed it when I pressed start the breakout rooms. Normally, I would always check that. I don't know why tonight I didn't check it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
It's late.
Don't worry. Everything went fine.
It went
Time
very
for
well.
supper.
I think we got a lot of input, where we can work on, and yeah.
And it looks like there's a lot of people who said yes to taking part in the future. So that's really good to have
really
more
nice.
feedback and more discussion and ideas.
Yeah. I think we will, I would set up a meeting in 2 weeks' time or anything like this, and then we can discuss. And we also have to write the attendance to ask if they would like to help us, to support us, anything like this.
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Then thank you very much.
Great. Have a great rest of the conference, everybody.
I'm going to go to sleep.
Well, yesterday I made it up to 11 p.m., but it was really good. So I liked the talk on the from the biodiversity guy. So it was really good.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, that was a good talk.
Yeah. Yes, it was really good. And I was really impressed what they are doing and what is implemented, and about the role management and all these things. And I said, wow, okay, why do we have in engineering so many problems?
See, and I think my favorite takeaway from that discussion was when he put the moths up and referred to them as a charismatic family of moths. And I was like, great.
It was really great. So yeah, I hope that this the other plenary session will be as good as that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we will see.
You've got this.
Okay, then thank you very much, and we will see us, and Santosh, we will see us on Thursday.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Take
guys.
care, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.